Oh, I should have stuck by him like a proper mum.
Did he ever mention anyone called Michael Keenan?
I met Michael. Once. I didn't like him. The way he was with John.
How do you mean?
John would get into trouble, but I knew who was pulling his strings.
Do you know if they're still in touch now?
I don't think so. When John came to me, they moved Michael back up north. Deliberately split them up. John was gutted. Michael's social worker thought John was a bad influence, but I, as I said, thought it was the other way round. Is Michael involved in this?
So can you tell us anything more about your social life?
What do you want to know?
Well, we saw you in Radar yesterday. Do you go there often?
I drop in occasionally.
Who'd you meet there?
No one.
I thought it was a place for meeting people.
I'm not into that.
What about S&M? You into that?
Johnny, you're gay?
I don't want to talk about that.
Okay. Could you tell us then if you've ever picked anybody up at Radar?
No.
Maybe you're already in a relationship.
Doesn't always work out though, does it, John?
So, who do you talk to while you're waiting for Mr. Wright?
No one in particular. I just have a drink. I'm not a regular.
What about the staff? What about Michael Keenan? The barman at Radar?
What about him?
How well do you know him?
Quite well.
Do you ever speak to him on the phone?
No.
So how long have you known him?
We were in a children's home together.
Yeah, according to the records, you were good friends.
We lost touch.
You witnessed a child drowning. It must have been a very traumatic experience for you. One that you wouldn't easily forget.
I hated that dump. I tried to put everything that happened there out of my mind.
When did you meet up with Michael again?
Well, was it a year ago or more recent than that?
I don't know. When he started working at the Radar, I guess. We knew each other before, but we aren't friends now.
I'm showing John Exhibit NM1. Can you explain that photograph to me? If you look carefully on the back, you can see that the lab has processed the data it was printed. It suggests it was taken 3 months ago.
No comment.
I'm showing Mr. Lord Exhibit NM2 and DC9. John, do you recognise these phones?
No.
Well, this phone we found in the alleyway where we arrested you. We took prints from it. They're yours. This one we found in Michael Keenan's flat.
No comment.
Have you ever used these phones to talk to Michael Keenan?
No.
John, we as good as found this phone in your possession. We've got detailed records of all the calls made from it. They're all to one number. Michael Keenan's.
That isn't my phone. I must have put my phone down somewhere and picked that one up by mistake.
So what's the Lord saying?
Well, he's acting guilty. And he was rattled when we started talking about Keenan and the pay-as-you-goes.
The mobiles are obviously key.
We know that the phone found in Keenan's house was used to call Lord. If we can prove that Keenan made the call and where he was at the time, then we can show they're both involved.
We've taken prints and DNA off both phones and we've got identifying numbers.
OK, Yvonne. Let's try and trace where these mobiles came from. If we can show that they were bought by either Keenan or Lord, then it'll make it more difficult for them to deny using them.
OK.
It's still only circumstantial. It doesn't link Keenan to the scene and it doesn't link them to the other murders. We need a confession.
I can't see Keenan rolling over. He's too cool.
Thing I don't understand. Lord's got a string of convictions, but he's never shown this level of sophistication before.
Well, we spoke to Elaine, the foster mother, and she reckons it was Keenan who was pulling Lord's strings. And when she realised that Lord had hooked up with Keenan again, she was shocked, as if she was worried something was going to happen.
Keenan's the one with all the crime books.
Yeah, he's given the order, Lord's doing the deed.
So what's his motive for killing for someone else?
Just Lord's in love with Keenan.
That makes Lord vulnerable. If he thinks Keenan's going down, he might start talking to try and save him. Especially if he thinks he's dropped Keenan in it.
But we haven't got enough on Keenan to play it that way.
Yeah, but Lord doesn't know that.
Well, he's seen that we've got that photo of him and Keenan. He must be kicking himself.
Yeah, but if we tell him we've got Keenan, then that'll be obvious. He's going to work out what we're doing.
What if he sees Keenan in custody? It might rattle him a little bit more.
I don't want to lose these suspects over a procedural error.
I'm with you on that one.
We don't want Keenan knowing that we've got Lord, all right?
Understood.
Thank you.
Hello, John. I'm DC Mickey Webb. We need to ask you a few more questions.
Right, on your feet.
How much longer are you going to keep me here?
What, haven't you heard?
I'm getting worried. How many more innocent people have to die before you idiots realise you've got it wrong?
Bill.
To say something upsetting.
Do you think you're funny?
Come on.
Stick him in interview room 3.
What's Keenan doing out of his cell?
You know, Mum, just being clumsy.
I've got some intelligence back on the mobiles.
Can you tell us more about your relationship with Michael Keenan?
Has he been arrested? I thought he was just a witness.
Why don't we start at the beginning? When you first met.
That was a long time ago.
Elaine told us back then you should be big mates.
Looks like you still are.
Can you tell us about your relationship with John Lord?
I don't have a relationship with John Lord. He's just someone who drinks at Radar.
But you knew him when you were in a kids' home together.
Yeah, I knew him, but that was years ago.
So you wouldn't say you were close anymore?
We never were.
We spoke to John's foster mum and she seems to think otherwise.
Part-time parents, eh? What do they know?
Exhibit DC9. I want to talk to you about this phone again. Now, we found this in your flat. Can you explain how it got there? A call was made to that phone at 11:30 on the night of Lance Powell's death. Did you make that call? Exhibit NN2. Blue Mobile. Same make and model as Exhibit DC9. This was the phone that was called. And we found it in John Lord's possession. We did some research and both phones were sold in one transaction at an outlet in Canley High Street. Exhibit YH23, a faxed copy of John Lord's credit card statements. Now, the amount and reference fit the transaction. Can you explain that?
Can you tell us what you did on Saturday night?
I can't remember.
Perhaps you went to the Radar?
No. I stayed in. I remember now, there was a documentary on telly.
Did Michael Keenan phone you?
He hasn't got my number.
Exhibit YH23 is a copy of your credit card 3 months ago. Do you remember this purchase? 2 identical pay-as-you-go mobile phones.
His and hers.
We know that Michael had a mobile which you paid for. It was used to call another mobile which you also paid for, which we found in your possession. John, you've already lied to us. You told us that you'd never picked anybody up at Radar, but we have a witness who says that you took him home and tied him up.
What are you talking about?
Ryan Carter.
Says you became threatening.
Well, he's got it wrong. He must have been someone else.
Well, there's your prints found all over his flat.
Do you recognise this man?
No.
You sure?
I may have seen him somewhere.
But you've never spoken to him or been to his flat?
No.
This man was a police officer. His name was Lance Powell. He'd been drinking at Radar after a bust-up with his partner. He was found dead on Sunday morning. He'd been tied up. Same way as you tied up Brian Carter.
Lance was very popular around this station. We can't understand why anybody would want to kill him.
You've got it wrong.
What, you didn't pick up Brian Carter?
All right. Ryan wanted me to take him home. But tying him up, all the weird stuff, that was his idea. He told me what to do. And maybe he's your murderer.
I'm showing John another photograph. Exhibit LF7. Do you recognise this man?
I may have seen him at Radar.
But you've never been anywhere else with him?
No.